Summer's here, and Nordstrom has everything you need for your best dress season ever. From beach days and weddings to weekend getaways and your everyday wardrobe. Discover stylish options under $100 from tons of your favorite brands like Mango, Skims, Princess Polly, and Madewell. It's easy too with free shipping and free returns, in-store order pickup, and more. Shop today in stores, online at Nordstrom.com, or download the Nordstrom app.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits. From sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome in. Hope you had a nice weekend. Tonight's program gonna be fantargulous. That's a word, I swear. Okay, it's not a word. I know a couple people who are all big on mindfulness, but are total narcissists. It's as if that focus on mindfulness doesn't help at all. Do you know anyone like that? Someone who maybe meditates all the time or self-reflects, and they're still selfish? Well, a new study says that's a thing, and we'll explore that later in the hour. Also, a comedian who says she's off of British and Canadian men. I'm a Canadian living in the US. My foreign correspondent, Tony 5, is British. We are going to confront her. That should be hilarious. Tonight we have for you lined up a great program, so let's dive in, shall we?
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
I am here with special foreign correspondent Tony 5 in London, England. Our lines are open to any of you out there to join the show. The number is 4... I was about to give my personal number.
Yeah, give your number then, David. Well done. Call him up at home, everybody.
Uh-oh, they know the first digit of my number. It's 4.
4.
My anonymity is lost. The number is 1-888-505-6644. 44.
44?
Okay,
or 44?
Look, English isn't my first language.
Obviously, neither is numbers.
Okay, it is my first language. On Thursday of last, we had a caller to the show, a young Gillian who seemed oddly normal.
Yep.
And we were really excited to talk to her because she was about to get married. She got married this last Saturday.
Literally a few days after we'd spoken to her, she held her nuptials, which isn't a euphemism.
Well, assuming that she didn't call the wedding off, but that's besides the point.
Well, we don't know yet, right?
Well, we Googled her over the weekend and we found her wedding registry. I know it's creepy. We did it, whatever. We went on the registry and on it, we found some curiously weird items, and Tony and I actually bought one.
So we saw anything from a few dollars to like a few $100 towards their like honeymoon and stuff. And David, being the generous, socially adept and tech-savvy millionaire from San Francisco, decided to get the second cheapest item on the list.
All right, well, let's give her a ring. Tony, we're going to call Gillian in London. And no, it's not the London you're in.
It's the second best one.
Hello.
Hi, Gillian. It's David and Tony calling.
Hi. Yes, it is. Hello.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
You called the show on Friday. You said you were, or maybe it was Thursday. Who knows?
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah.
It was a day.
It was a day. It was definitely a day.
Yeah.
And you were to get married on, was it Sunday? Was it yesterday?
Saturday.
Great memory.
Upcoming nuptials.
How did the wedding go?
Oh my gosh, it was perfect. It was so good.
Wow.
Tell us about the day.
It was great. All of our close friends, everything just worked out. We did like pretty much everything ourselves. Like we catered it ourselves. We rented all the chairs ourselves. We brought everything. There was a tongs crisis where we didn't bring enough tongs at one point, but I didn't notice any of that the day of. I didn't have to do any work that day.
Oh.
Everyone was on time.
Wow. The tong crisis sounds a lot like the Cuban Missile Crisis that happened in the U.S. when the USSR was hiding nukes in Cuba. I mean, that's a serious crisis.
It was, oh my gosh, how would people be able to grab sandwiches off the table if not for all of these tongs. But everything worked out. It was perfect.
And the weather? What was the weather like?
Oh my gosh, it was 24 and some clouds. It was like no wind. It was perfect.
And remind me the location?
Not far off the Thames.
Oh yeah, you're London, aren't you?
Yes.
But not the good one.
No, it's not as
Oh.
I will say the one funny thing was that I'm walking down the aisle. Andrew and I didn't do a first look. I just decided to walk down, and he's crying.
Aww.
And I panicked because it didn't seem like a happy cry.
Did he step on something? What happened?
I didn't. I honestly thought he was going to leave. I was like, we talked about this. I said, if you don't want to do it, please tell me before. Just text me, and that's okay. It's okay. But oh my gosh, I walked up the whole time, and like everyone said, I looked panicked, and I was literally panicking. But then he reached out and took my hand, and he gave me the look like it's all good. Don't worry about it. Like I'm happy crying. But oh my gosh, I had a moment.
What a sweet wife you are. You were like, you gave him a chance to back out of it. If I had said that to my ex-wife before our wedding, she would have smacked me.
Absolutely. That's a level of confidence that you have.
I didn't want to be tilted. I said, it's okay. But oh my gosh, I panicked. But it was okay. It worked out. He was very happy afterwards. Everything was perfect. I only threw up a few times the next morning. It was great.
You're a computer nerd, so log on to your router, or as they say in the UK, your router, and block all Google searches for annulment so we can trap this guy and not let him out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so did you receive anything?
Did you notice anything on your wedding registry that got purchased, Gillian?
I have not checked. Should I be checking?
I think you should check, yes, because your two least favorite radio hosts may have bought you a wedding present.
No way.
Yeah, Gillian. So, firstly, let us apologize. We kind of little bit cyber stalked you.
No, that's...
And then we found your wedding list, which was publicly available online, so we didn't do anything bad.
Yes.
And David and I had a top level powwow, which is basically we were talking whilst we were on the toilet.
Yeah.
And David said, Tony, do you think we should get her something on the wedding list? And I said, David, she was lovely. She's the first caller we've had that isn't clinically insane or incarcerated. So, let's do it. And he did. And we did. And it said...
No way.
Yeah, we did. 100%.
First, we wanted to sort by the cheapest thing, and there was some sort of basting brush, some sort of kitchen brush.
Yeah, basting brush.
It was like $4, and we were going to get that for you. But then we looked a little bit deeper. We added a few more dollars to it, and we found a black matte toilet brush.
That was you?
That was us! So now every time you clean your toilet, we hope that you think of us.
No way.
Last show with David Cooper, sponsored by that toilet brush. Now, if that doesn't fill every listener out there with a warm and fuzzy feeling, I don't know what does, David.
That's not what that feeling is, Tony.
Gillian, what do you think? You got a present from essentially two not very minor celebrities.
I know. I almost don't want to tell people when they come in, just in case. I don't want anyone to nick it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Good use of British slang, too.
Good use of British slang there, Nicky, yeah.
Maybe the next time after people come over.
We should have gotten it engraved. We didn't want to spend the money, I guess. Well, anyway, we want you to enjoy your new toilet brush that was purchased off your registry, kindly.
David, not just her, but her joyful husband as well.
Yes.
Remember, they're a twosome now.
They are a twosome, and just make sure you block all Google searches for annulment. We got to trap this guy. We want to trap him in the house with the toilet brush.
Yes. Yeah, because you never know. I think I've got him locked down now, but I had a moment.
Well, would you mind if we kept in touch?
Of course.
And find out how the marriage is going and essentially how the toilet brush is going?
Yes, of course. I'll make sure to try it out soon.
Oot.
Usually after I listen to your show anyway, I usually have to go to the bathroom, so That'll be perfect.
Well, Gillian in London, we congratulate you on your marriage. We congratulate you on your new black toilet brush. And thanks for listening to the show. We'll keep following up with you and annoying you until you can't stand it anymore.
Oh, thank you. Please do.
You take care, Gillian. And like everybody says, once you go back, you never go back. And that counts with toilet brushes too.
Thank you so much.
More London-based Tony 5 and the weirdest, most disgusting job someone can do that's totally normal here in New York after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Roll baller Alonzo Ball for Buzzballs. Ready to go cocktails. Take 12.
Buzzballs just dropped their biggest blue balls.
Script says Biggie's Blue Balls, Lonzo. Take 13.
Blue balls just dropped their biggest buzzballs.
Let's try a vocal exercise.
Buzzballs, biggies, blue balls, buzzballs, biggies, blue balls.
Big balls just dropped. Get blue balls this season with Buzzballs.
Please drink responsibly. Buzzballs available in spirit, wine, and malt. 15% alcohol by volume. Buzzballs LLC, Carrollton, Texas.
Tony 5 is here. He's our foreign correspondent. I am David Cooper. This is not the first show. Tony, welcome in, my friend.
David, what a wonderful day to welcome everybody in the world who's listening to our dulcet tones, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. Dulcet's a strong word. Is it dulcet or dulcet? I am good. How are you?
I don't know, but I know that there's that ceremony in it, dulce de leche. Is that May the 5th in Mexico?
No, that's a delicious topping for a dessert.
So why do they celebrate it?
That's Cinco de Mayo. I think that's...
Is that celebration of mayonnaise?
No, it's the 5th of May. Tony, today I had someone at my apartment and I didn't think anything of it.
Wow. Yeah, great story. Carry on.
Great story. That's the story. We'll be back after the break.
Yeah.
And then, so who I had over was a little guy. It's actually two guys, but you call them colloquially the bug guy, okay? The bug guy.
Oh, no way. Did you have insects in your house or rats or something?
Well, we saw cockroaches because every building in New York, we saw one, they came and they sprayed. But it got me thinking, everybody in New York calls the exterminator the bug guy. And it's just this New York thing that happens. I'm like, in every other city, it's pest control, exterminator.
Yeah, exterminator,
you know? But it's so common in New York to have roaches that everyone just has a guy who comes by once a month and low-level sprays the building and keeps it under control. That's the case with our building. They skipped a month, and I did give my super for that. But they skipped a month. So we saw a roach, no problem. They came by, they sprayed the basement, they sprayed every floor, they sprayed the elevator shaft, they sprayed our bathroom. We're not going to see him again. But it's just this funny thing that every building and every tenant in New York pretty much has a relationship with, quote unquote, the bug guy. And it really occurred to me that only in New York is it just such a normal thing. It's like having a superintendent or a handyman. You know, it's just the bug guy.
The way you've said it, it's like you've got a lawyer on retainer, a doctor, and a bug guy on retainer. Like, they're just constantly there, the three things that you really need.
Yeah, and it's just everyone here has a relationship with, quote, a bug guy. For whatever reason, is always a guy. And yeah, it's such a New York thing to me to have a bug guy. And I just find that very funny. It's so New York. Everywhere else, it's pest controller and exterminator.
Do you know him now? Are you going to develop a relationship with him? Can you get him on a show later?
Yeah, one's named... Satie, like the composer.
Satie? What, like Beethoven?
Yeah, kind of like that. And the other's name was, oh man, I already forget it, but it was like some French name after a place.
You are one with the working man, David. I love the fact that you're so grounded that you are one with the working man, just like me. Do you remember my name?
Tony?
Yeah, well done, my friend. Well done. You're one with the people.
Antonio!
You're one with the people. I know one of them, and I don't know the other one.
Yeah.
But he cleans my cockroaches so great.
Yeah, well, they're nice guys. I'll get his name next time, because he'll be
Thank
back.
you.
Everyone's got a bug guy. That's my story. It's not that interesting. It's just such a New York thing to have a bug guy, and that's all I wanted
So is he your bug guy or the building's bug guy?
The building's
so for
bug
those
guy.
who don't know, David lived in his apartment, in the Empire State Building.
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, he's just, I guess the building pays him or the super pays him or whatever. Yeah.
And it's covered in your costs.
They come and do the building. Every building's got one from the Empire State. That's what's the real equalizer in New York. No matter how fancy the building, how fancy the apartment,
you'll have a bug guy.
Everyone's got roaches if the building's, let's say, older than 20 years.
Does he look like a Ghostbuster? Because we don't have them here in the UK. Unless you've got a complete problem, I'll never see one. I wouldn't even know where to find one. But does he come in like a Ghostbuster with a back?
Toulouse. That was the other guy's name, Toulouse. They were two French names.
That's really odd. Are you sure?
I think so.
Are you just making it up? Like, I don't know. What did you call him? Satay? I'm
Satay.
sure that's something to do with like Malaysian food.
No.
And Toulouse, I'm pretty sure, is in Germany or somewhere.
No, that's in France.
Okay. Well, anyway.
What's on your mind, Tony?
David, I have one word for you.
One verb?
Are you ready? Yeah, ready? Bribery.
You've been bribing people?
No, my friend. Over the recent days, I've been thinking, how can we get more listeners to the show, my friend?
Ooh.
So, what I did, I'm not telling you how, I'm not telling you why, but there may or may not be a certain clothing shop that has misplaced 1,000 white t-shirts.
Okay.
Okay, there may be. I'm not saying that there is, but there may be. And I would like to open our phone lines, our emails, our addresses to people that may want to listen to the show and may want a t-shirt that we will send to him or them or her free of charge in exchange for maybe them listening to us, which weirdly that's a paradox, right? Because if they were listening, then we wouldn't need them to listen, and if they weren't, then they weren't.
Did you just say a pair of
Yeah. So basically, what I want to do...
Paradox!
Docs, same thing.
You're going to get us fired, Tony. Jeez.
This, mate, I mean, that's a good thing. So basically, I'm spitballing, David. This is what you guys call in America, spitballing it. I'm high level. Isn't it? What do they call it? We're spitballing.
You want to give away T-shirts to our listeners, singular intended.
Correct.
All right.
But it's got to be the best caller or the best interaction with us if they can kind of take pictures and send them to us or call up the show or maybe even have a conversation with us and convince me to send you a t-shirt.
Well, the line is open at 1-888-505-6644 or email Tony. Honestly, Tony's email address is so good you should just email him anyway because he doesn't condescend to use a .com email address like the rest of you.
No.
He uses a .pizza email address. Tony@lastshow.pizza.
Correct, mate. I'm completely out of the box, my friend, like a pizza.
Yes.
Do you like that?
I do. All right. So you're willing to send out, I don't know why you said we're opening up our addresses to people. People cannot have my address. Maybe yours, 123 Britain Street.
Yeah.
Great Britain, UK, zip code 73.
That's the one. Zip code 69, as you know, David. But yeah, they're welcome to. And obviously, sending anything from the UK has to get the official seal of approval from our King, our Lord and Savior. So I would be happy to do that. I think North American postage is like $92, which is fine. We have the budget, my friend.
All right. Tony@lastshow.pizza. Tony wants to hear from you. Anything else on your mind?
Yeah. I mean, I would say email me, Tony@lastshow.pizza or David@lastshow.pizza. Send us a haiku. Now, I've seen that on a menu last week and I like it. I love a haiku with egg rolls. So if they could send me a haiku and possibly a statement, why do you listen to this show? Why could we call you up? Can we call you up? What medication are you on? And yeah, we'll decide from the ones of emails we'll get.
Tony loves haikus. What medication you on? Please send an email. Huh?
What's that? Are you all right?
That was a haiku right there.
Sounded like you were having a stroke.
No, I was counting out the syllables. Syllables?
Oh, is that why your fingers were moving?
Yeah. That's why my fingers were moving.
Oh, okay.
You at the commercial break, you're like, I got all these great things to talk about. It's just you want to send people T-shirts. That's all you got?
Still a great thing to talk about, my friend. I don't know what you're thinking.
That was the big reveal. You're like, oh, I got this exciting new thing to say, and I can't tell you what it is.
Do you remember how we've got our catchphrase that hasn't taken off, which is title first, content second?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is more stock first, content second. I've basically got 1,000 t-shirts that I need to get rid of.
Tony, coming up after the break, I have this friend who's a stand-up comedian, Natasha Vinik.
You have a friend?
Yeah, I know. Okay, I have a friend. All right. She's a comedian. Yeah. Fine, Tony. I have one friend. And
she's a girl.
She's a girl.
David, Natasha, sitting in a tree. Kissing.
Fun fact, my imaginary girlfriend growing up was named Natasha. This is a clip from a recent show she was on.
If it's a white man who has the queen on his money, run. Get out of there.
Ooh.
Period.
You're saying no British men.
No British men, no Canadian men. I will make exceptions for Australians and New Zealanders.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my stance. Been there. Not good.
Interesting.
That said, my inbox is open. You know what I mean?
if you
try me.
David, that's fighting talk, my friend. Fighting talk.
She thinks you shouldn't date a white guy who's Canadian or British. I'm Canadian, you're British. There's something you don't qualify for there, and we're going to bring her on the show after the break to discuss.
My friend, I'm going to warm up right now.
Tony 5 is our foreign correspondent in London, England. Him and comedian Natasha Vinik for a weird confrontation up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
This is your nightly dose of chaos, confession, and questionable life choices. The Last Show with David Cooper.
And we are back with foreign correspondent in London, England, Tony 5. Tony, welcome in, my friend.
David, I'm welcome to be in.
All right. A friend of mine, comedian Natasha Vinik. You
got a friend?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yes, one. It's Natasha Vinik.
Is it a girl?
It's Tony.
Oh, that's nice.
All right. She has a podcast called When Harry Dumped Sally, and she did the follow.
Oh, like the film?
Yeah, it's like the Tony.
Carry on.
You're doing great, my friend. She was recorded doing this on her show.
If it's a white man who has the queen on his money, run. Get out of there.
Ooh.
Period.
Huh?
You're saying no British men.
What?
No British man, no Canadian men. I will make exceptions for Australians and New Zealanders.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my stance. Been there. Not good.
Interesting.
That said, my inbox is open. You know what I mean?
if you
try me.
Umbrage, David. I take umbrage.
Tony is British, I am Canadian, and we are joined by comedian Natasha Vinik, who was just played on that clip. Natasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It was me. I stand by everything I said.
Okay, for number one, we no longer have a queen. So that was sacrilegious.
You think you're the first person to say that to me?
Whoa.
Do you know how many comments I've gotten in response to this clip? People go, it's not our queen anymore. I'm like, yeah, she's still on your money. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, I mean, you just did.
Good Lord.
She's still on your money. They didn't take away all of your money all of a sudden.
Okay, well, that's the first thing.
You still have her on your coins.
And so what is the problem with us Brits? Because I speak on behalf of every red-blooded Englishman in my country.
Do you speak on behalf of every white British man in your country? Because I was very clear in that clip.
100%. So I've just got a very deep tan, Natasha Vinik.
Yeah, Tony's just very tanned.
Umbrage. I take umbrage, David. Umbrage.
Tony is black.
You people.
He described himself as Malteser colored.
He
That's
did.
what he said.
Well,
at the commercial break, he showed his bald head to Natasha and said, "Don't I look like a Malteser?"
Right. Natasha then, before she put herself on mute, said, "I'm going to enjoy my nibs." Right. So we're even.
All right. Okay. Let's try to have some narrative here. Although the chances that we'll have one, Your issue with, white, so maybe Tony is excluded.
Racist.
But he has a fancy sounding accent. I think
It's not fancy. This one's not a fancy accent. This is not fancy, Tony, what you have going on.
Oh, she's talking about me.
Whoa.
Yeah, you.
Are you just calling Tony scum based on his accent?
David, this is not only umbrage, this is confrontational. As the words of the Americans say, I've got beef, David. I've got beef, pork and chicken, my friend. Yeah?
I was worried that you two would get too along and like each other better than me, but now I'm glad you're fighting.
David, this is not... Did you bring her on to beef with me?
A little.
This is not good content, my friend.
He texted me in advance and he said, make beef. He wanted me to make beef, and I'm making beef.
Okay, before we get to the beef between Tony and Natasha, and arguably me and you, can we talk about why you think any man with the Queen on their money, that is any British or Canadian man,
Any British or Canadian white man.
And Australians for some reason. What was wrong? What's so good about them?
I said Australians are fine.
But
Australians and New Zealanders are fine. They're delightful.
Have you ever met Australians? If you
So
let one
many.
into your house, 5 minutes later, there's 20 of them.
Mostly convicts, mostly work in bars, and
Yeah.
mostly Crocodile Dundee or the guy that got stabbed in the heart with a fish. So, yeah, brilliant. Well done, Natasha. Where's your accent from, girl? Listen, David, I don't care. Man, woman, or child, you're bringing the beef. Tony's delivering the beef, steakside. So, where's the accent from? Go on, girl. Where's Vinik from? Vinik sounds like a bleach product in England. Go on, where's Vinik from? What is this?
South Africa.
Really? Oh, and you don't like black people? I wonder why. Yeah? I wonder why. Okay, there's you, Elon Musk, and my good friend, Nelson Mandela has got something. So basically, you're talking about the Mandela effect. Is that what's going on? Yeah, you can talk now. Natasha Vinik.
Wait, the guy who was stabbed in the heart with a fish is such a funny way to say that.
Was it a fish?
How else do you want me to describe him? The fish stabbed him in the heart.
It was a stingray, but that's very funny.
Oh, whatever.
Is this just because you had one bad egg who was British?
I had one baguette.
A baguette, David?
You had one baguette who was British and one bad egg who was Canadian, and then
You got it. Yep.
You've written off a whole nation, 2 nations of people?
You figured me out. Just the white men in them. But yes, you figured me out.
What did the British whitey do?
Give you too much tea? Treat you well? Help you brush your teeth? What? What did we do?
He helped me brush his teeth because he wouldn't brush his own, you know?
Oh, he had hygiene issues.
No, he was lovely, except for when he was bad.
And what did he do that was so bad?
What was his worst offense? Court of law, you got to prove why we should hate him, and you get one exhibit. What is it?
Yeah, I'll be the defense or the offense. Whatever, David can be the judge. What am I, David? What is it if she's saying something and I don't like it?
An idiot. Please proceed, Natasha.
He just had a stick up his the whole relationship. He couldn't joke about anything. He wasn't fun.
Some guys like that.
No, it was lame. He was lame.
He was lame.
How did you meet?
At work. He was my boss for a second, and then we switched.
Whoa. Dated the boss.
Well, no, we switched, so I went under someone else, so it was appropriate.
No, I bet you did, Dirty Vinik.
Yeah, you got it.
I bet you did, Dirty Vinik.
All right. He had his stick up his rear end. Fine. Case dismissed. And the Canadian guy?
He broke up with me by telling me I was too depressed and my life was too unstable, which he knew going into the relationship. Okay, he knew that from the beginning.
So he wanted the milk for free, probably.
Yes.
She's not a cow.
Sure.
No, I'm just
bringing the beef.
No, I get it. He knew what he was getting into, and then he couldn't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
He couldn't handle the truth.
And North Americans? What's wrong with North Americans?
You mean the Canadians?
That's really far North Americans. I mean, just like...
Oh, here?
The North ones. Not Mexicans, which are further down, and not Irish, which are left. Just the North American ones in the middle.
I mean, everything's wrong with everyone here, but that isn't in my clip. But yes, everything's wrong with everyone here, too.
Okay, so ideal man is where? Australia, which is an island full of convicts and crocodiles.
Maybe a woman.
Oh,
maybe a woman is my ideal man.
What about a white Canadian or white British woman?
I accept those things. British women are hot.
Whoa. Are they, though?
Okay.
British women are so hot.
What about the teeth? The teeth.
Only if they have good teeth. Sorry, I'm a teeth woman. I need good teeth.
And you just offended my queen. British women are hot.
She's dead, okay? She's dead.
That's the way to break it to us.
Get over her. She's not your queen anymore, Tony.
Can we just discuss how you're Canadian? So my brother, John, who's been on the show occasionally, Tony knows him.
My favorite.
He was cool growing up, and he was a cool guy. I was not. I was his loser brother. Anyway.
Seriously? You weren't cool growing up, David?
Shocker, huh? We went to a summer camp. My brother was very popular, and Natasha was dating a guy who went to the same summer camp. And he found out that Natasha was on the show, and he said, hey, tell your friend David to say hi to his brother John for me. So I did, and my brother said, I don't know that guy.
Boom.
Yeah, isn't that such a good insult to someone?
It's so good. And he's never forgotten it either.
He's the kind of guy who pretends he knows cool people.
Yeah, he doesn't know anyone.
Oh, and did he really feel it? Was it painful? Was it like a fish to the heart?
It was like a fish to the heart.
Fish to the heart, and you're too late.
Yeah. What a waste of effort.
All right, I allow you to write off a complete nation of white people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Two, really. Tony, do we think she's in the right for writing off a whole country based on these two men?
Yeah, she's good. I mean, I was very offended by what she said to my nation, to my people as general. What's your number? Have you got Instagram? What's
Tony.
your details?
Yeah. And to be clear, at the very end, I said, try me. You know what I mean? So I don't really stick to my guns.
And to be fair, that's the only bit I heard.
Tony, you dog. Natasha Vinik, you can find her podcast, When Harry Dumped Sally, wherever podcasts are found. Find her at Natasha Vinik on any social media website. That's VINIK. Natasha.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
There they both go. Tony 5 is our foreign correspondent in London, England. Coming up next, I know one or two people that focus a lot on mindfulness. But does it make them a better person, or if they're already selfish and they get Zen, it just makes them worse? Turns out, yeah, it does make them worse. And we got the science to prove it and why in just a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Pro Paint Days are back at Lowe's, and My Lowe's Pro Rewards members can save even more with limited time deals. Right now, buy one, get one half off select HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams primer and ceiling paint. Plus, get free same-day delivery to your job site when you order by 2 p.m. Offer valid through 6/13, delivery by 8 p.m., subject to driver availability. Additional terms apply. See Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for details.
The human algorithm, where emotional inputs create unexpected outputs. The last show with David Cooper.
Mindfulness, your tendency to be present, aware, and non-judgmental in daily life. Does that make you a better person? The question. New research suggests it depends on whether you see yourself as part of a group or more of a lone wolf. Turns out Zen doesn't always make you a generous person. I'm here with someone who's worked on that research. His name is Dr. Michael Poulin. He's a psychology professor at the University at Buffalo College of Arts and Sciences. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
There's a big twist in your research that I want to start with here. You found that under some conditions, mindfulness can make you less generous. And that all depends on how you see yourself. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about, what it is that you want and out of life, what do you prioritize? For a lot of us, it's all about me, right? What I want is to achieve goals for myself. What I want is to achieve wealth, happiness, peace of mind, things like that. But you can also have goals that are more like, I want what's good for my family. I want what's good for my groups that I belong to. I want what's good for my relationships, or even what's good for my society. And, these are a couple of different ways of thinking about the self and what our priorities are. And it turns out if among people who seem to prioritize more self-oriented goals, the more mindful they are, the less generous they are. It's almost as if mindfulness intensifies kind of whatever your underlying social tendency is, right? Because mindfulness is all about being aware of and accepting your experiences. And if your experience is of your own goals for yourself, then, maybe that gives you permission to say, no, it's really okay to embrace what I want as opposed to what other people want.
I want to be that second kind. I want to be the selfless community minding what's good for me, my family, my community. I'm not sure I am, though. Can you control what kind of person you are, or is that more like inherent?
That's an excellent question. I mean, I think that there's room for both. I think that there are individual differences. Like we come out of the womb to some extent hardwired with certain ways of thinking about ourselves versus others. Our experiences as we grow up further influence those things. But it's also the case that your experiences as you grow up can instill in you a set of values that you can reflect on and be like, no, this is, despite whatever my preset is, this is what I want to reach out to be. This is what I want to become. And in fact, in some of our prior research, we've actually done experiments where we can shift people around in terms of this, in terms of thinking about themselves more as part of a group, more as individuals. So absolutely, if you yourself want to embrace values that say, I want to think about others, that is a choice you can make.
Okay, good. I mean, my deepest fear is that I'm that selfish kind, but I try my best not to be. Self-construal. What does that mean? How does it apply to your study? I was kind of captured by this concept.
Yeah, it's a fancy term for what I was trying to describe kind of at the top. This idea that when we think about ourselves, we can think about ourselves as primarily as individuals, just as, me, my own goals, or we can think about ourselves, that is, construe ourselves as part of a collective, as part of a group.
So if I'm mindful and a lone wolf, am I just more aware of how little I want to help people? I'm more aware of achieving my own goals and kind of thing?
Well, I think it's both awareness, more aware and more accepting of it, right? I'm aware that I want to do my own thing, and when I reflect on it, I think, yeah, and that's okay. It's okay for me to want to prioritize myself. And let me be very clear. I'm not saying that's not okay, right? It is okay to want what you want. It is okay to be a person who has your own desires. It's just, when you put that in combination with what your values are, is that how you always want to be? And I'm not sure that's true for everyone.
It's okay to be a little bit selfish as part of a wider whole rather than singularly focused on your own goals. Let's talk about the experiment. You asked participants to do what, and how did you interpret the results?
Well, in one of the studies we did, we actually randomly assigned people to a mindfulness meditation condition versus what we call the sham meditation condition. Everyone thought they were meditating, but one of the conditions was to tell people to just let their minds wander. Now, that may sound like meditation, but it's really not a recognized form of meditation that anyone knows about. But everyone thought they were meditating, but only half of people were actually being mindful. And then separate from that, we measured people's self-construals. That is how much people saw themselves as individuals versus part of a group. And then we had people read a story about a charity and invited them at the end of the study to stuff envelopes to make appeals on behalf of that charity. And the way we measure generosity is how many envelopes people bothered to stuff, because they could leave the experiment at any time at that point. And in that study, what we found is that being in the mindfulness condition affected how many envelopes people stuffed, but specifically among people who saw themselves as individuals, mindfulness led people to stuff fewer envelopes, whereas among people who saw themselves as part of a group, mindfulness led them to stuff more envelopes.
Did the findings surprise you? I feel like in general, we recommend mindfulness, meditation, being non-judgmental in your daily life. We recommend these things to everyone to get them to be more selfless. But now it's like, well, if this person's inherently only looking out for numero uno, maybe we don't recommend that to them. It's surprising to me. Did it surprise you?
Well, it didn't really, because the reason why I started this experiment was I was sort of reflecting on the nature of mindfulness. When mindfulness was first developed as part of, the Buddhist religion, right? It was embedded in an entire belief system that involved things like, have compassion for other beings, recognize that you are interconnected with other beings. But the way it's often delivered to us here in the West, all of that is stripped away. And it's just focus on your breathing, be aware of your sensations. There's not really a moral dimension to it. And so it didn't surprise me that once you strip away the context, the social, the religious, the moral context of it, it's kind of a neutral tool.
Huh. Yeah, we've cherry-picked the one thing and sort of told everyone it's this great thing, but ignoring these other parts may not have the benefits of the wider whole of that religion.
Right. I mean, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it has lots of benefits to individuals, right? It's good for stress relief. It's good for mental health. It's good for individual well-being. But that doesn't automatically mean that it has social or interpersonal benefits.
Any major takeaways or recommendations to people who designed mindfulness interventions or offer mindfulness training or teachers of it?
I think at the very least, I would like people who put out, who put forth mindfulness interventions. I'd like them to at least be aware of this and to be aware that they need to think about, is this a context where I want there to be a moral or ethical dimension or not? Right. So mindfulness interventions get delivered in schools. Well, if part of your goal there is to reduce bullying or increase kindness, you might need to do a little more than just the mindfulness part.
Interesting. It's not this one-size-fits-all kind of tool for helping people.
Exactly.
All right. Any other interesting studies in this area that you're working on?
Well, the most recent work we did was looking at individual differences in mindfulness. That is, everyone goes through life with some level of mindfulness. Some are high, some are low. And we wanted to make sure that our previous findings were not just because we did a very short laboratory, meditation thing. Turned out we found very similar things. How mindful you are in everyday life has similar implications depending on how you see yourself in relation to others.
Michael, thanks for sharing your study. This was a great chat. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Michael Poulin is a psychology professor at the University at Buffalo College of Arts and Sciences. After the break, a moral quandary, a dilemma. One person asks, is she the a-hole for agreeing to go to a family event of her husband's twice instead of alternating every other year? On the third year, he said, well, technically it's my turn again because you skipped your turn. She's mad, but she wants to know, is she the a-hole? We'll tackle that dilemma with a licensed couples therapist up next. What's your take?
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want is a great feeling. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
When your therapist won't take your calls anymore, there's always the last show with David Cooper.
Online, a woman posted this. She and her husband agreed to alternate family Christmases every year, to take yearly turns spending Christmas with each other's families, to travel. Last year, the dude's family guilted them into breaking that deal. They went to the husband's house 2 years in a row. Now the hubby says it's technically his turn again on the third year. Technically. The wife, fed up, booked a solo flight home. Holiday spirit, festive rebellion. She asks, is she the a-hole? Here to discuss is licensed therapist who runs the Laurel Therapy Clinic serving California and Florida. Her name is Laurel Roberts-Meese. Laurel, welcome to the show.
Hey there.
I always find these quandaries posted online so much fun to go over. I always have such a visceral reaction to problems like this. What's your take on something like this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a really common topic. In marital argument territory, we're looking at money, we're looking at sex, and in-laws is the third major hot button topic, right? So this is super common. And, also in reading the post by this young woman, this is a young couple. They're 23 and 25, right? So there's bound to be a learning curve in how they communicate and how they are prioritizing family versus their marriage, right? And I think that's really what's going on here is that, they're trying to balance, okay, we created our own new family unit. How does that fit into the family units that we came from? And that's no small task, because in most families, as here, there are some big personalities on both sides, and trying to kind of keep the peace and keep everyone happy is honestly an impossible task some of the time.
It seems like the real problem here is the husband might have difficulty setting boundaries with his family. They're giving him a BS argument to apply to his wife, saying, oh, it's technically our year because last year was your year, even though you came here.
Yeah.
And he's sort of passing that argument over. I know I'm jumping to conclusions, but I find that can happen. It happened to me in my first marriage, I got to say.
Oh, totally. I mean, it sounds like the husband's family loves real hard, and they are just like, nope, we want you here, we want you here, we want you here. And they may not be considering how it is for this young woman who, just came into this family. I don't know how long this couple has been together. And also in the post, I noted that she's actually living in the country where his family is. And I think she's pretty homesick because she's far away from her family, right? So yeah, you absolutely hit it. Like, we're talking about boundaries here. And it sounds like the husband might have a little trouble setting boundaries with his family, even in the spirit of protecting his wife.
I love that you described what I said as bad boundaries as the family loving really hard. That's such a glass half full interpretation of bad boundaries. Thank you for that. There's a great scene and a great learning from the movie The Big Lebowski. And it's when Walter, or John Goodman's character, pulls a gun on an opposing bowling team because they cheated. And then the dude says to Walter, like, you shouldn't have done that. And Walter's like, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. And Walter was technically in the right. Just like this husband is saying, technically it's his turn. And the dude says to Walter, you're not wrong. You're just an asshole. And I feel like that, you got to learn that. Even if you feel that you're right on your technicality, you're not really accounting for the other person's feelings.
Well, and the spirit of the agreement, not the technicality of the agreement. The spirit was, we're going to try and find a way to equitably split our holidays, right? And the husband isn't doing that.
Talk to me about just going off and booking that solo flight home, though. Is that something you should do when your partner is acting unreasonably? Just go off and do what's right for you when you know that they're in the wrong?
Well, we have to remember these are real people. We're not privy to what discussions were had. And maybe she did discuss it with him. Maybe she did say, hey, I really miss my family. Haven't seen them in 2.5, 3 years. I really need to go home this year. And then booked it. I'm hoping that's what she did, right?
Sure.
But, if she did it in anger, maybe not the best idea. And also, often behavior that, the internet would deem as, a-hole behavior is just someone trying to get their needs met. And she clearly has a need to be connected to her family, just as he does, right? He needs to be connected to his family. And most behavior we would deem unreasonable makes sense in context.
One person posted like, oh, you're not the a-hole here, but your problem isn't going away. Like, he's chosen his mom over you. It may be resolved somewhat for this year, but next year this is going to happen again. What do you say to something like that when you see a little inkling of a problem that's really going to come back to bite someone in years coming forward?
Well, this is definitely a problem that is workable. Right. So for everyone listening that's like, oh, gosh, yeah, in-laws are really a hot button topic in my marriage. Like, it's definitely workable. We know what the research shows is that what works is the person whose family it is. So in this case, the husband, he needs to be the one to set boundaries with his family. Now, it sounds like that's going to be hard for him. Right. But most important is that the wife needs to see him setting those boundaries. Now, he doesn't need to be perfect at it all the time. She just needs to see that he's making an effort to protect her and to help get her needs met too. It doesn't mean he always chooses his wife over his family. And it also doesn't mean he always chooses his family over his wife, right? It's how do we balance these two family units? And especially the perception by the wife that he's making an effort to set those boundaries. That's what the research says is most important for making this marriage work.
Interesting. So not just trying to pass along a technical argument that may or may not be coming from your own family, but really showing that spouse that you're willing to like work with them and, okay, fine, we'll go 2 years in a row, but I'll make some concession. Is that kind of the best way to do this? I'm wondering, I'm picturing myself as this dude. How best would you handle me kind of thing? Yeah.
So this is, obviously not a couple I've seen in couples therapy, which we do lots of in our clinic. It's not necessarily about the big ticket items like Christmas or the holidays, right? Now, yes, that's where it tends to show up, but it's also the small things. How can he start setting boundaries with his family in small ways? In this post, the woman posted they go to his family's house every Sunday for lunch and stay the whole day.
Oh my God.
And sometimes she doesn't want to go, which totally fair, right? If you're lucky, you get a 2-day weekend. And if you want to spend those days relaxing and taking care of yourself, and suddenly half of that time is spent with your in-laws. And she said she likes her in-laws well enough. Like, she doesn't have a negative relationship with them, but that is a lot of time. And I think an area I would start is in setting some boundaries with these weekend hangouts, right? That might be a more manageable place for the husband to start practicing and building up the muscle of setting boundaries with his family, and then to work up to being able to have the harder conversations around big ticket items like the holidays.
This woman posted further that when she did miss that weekly Sunday hangout, that the mom sent her a text saying that she was unappreciative. How do we deal with an in-law like that? I feel like my mom's perfect now, but 15 years ago, that was her to a T, and it did cause conflict with her and my ex-wife.
Yeah. The husband needs to step in there and say, hey, mom, you cannot text that to my wife. No negative texting, no angry texting. Like, this is the person I've chosen to spend my life with, and be nice to her, Yeah. It's okay if we take a weekend off, right? If your parents are the problem, it really is your job to step in and set boundaries, because you have a more solid, hopefully, fewer conditions on the love you receive from your family when it's your family, and your spouse is coming in with very little foothold and very little leverage to set any boundaries and take the blowback when they don't like it. So it really is your job to set those boundaries.
Laurel Roberts-Meese is a licensed therapist who runs Laurel Therapy Collective, serving California and Florida. Laurel, I know you're way too classy to say this, but I'm going to make the judgment definitively. This woman is not the a-hole. I appreciate you coming on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks so much.
Up next, do you trust people who grew up in luxury or grew up in poverty more? Does struggle have an advantage? Answers in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
With a Venmo debit card, you can Venmo more than just your friends. You can use your balance in so many ways. You can Venmo everything. Need gas? You can Venmo this. How about snacks? You can Venmo that. Your favorite band's merch? You can Venmo this. Or their next show? You can Venmo that. Visit venmo.me/debit to learn more.
You can Venmo this, or you can Venmo that. You can Venmo this, or you can Venmo that. You can Venmo.
The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Card may be used everywhere MasterCard is accepted. Venmo purchase restrictions apply.
Taste the forbidden fruit of knowledge. The last show with David Cooper.
Who would you trust more, a person who grew up with nothing or someone raised in luxury? Someone who's ever only flown first class, drives Royces. New research reveals that our gut instinct about class and morality might surprise you. Turns out, struggle might have a branding advantage. I'm here with Dr. Kristin Laurin, a psychology professor at the University of British Columbia, who did research on whether we trust people who grew up with less, more. Confusing sentence. Kristin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
What are some of the qualities that make someone seem trustworthy at first impression?
Yeah, I think what makes people seem trustworthy is just the idea that they're a good moral person. And so that's kind of where we started with this research, because there are stereotypes that we have about people based on their social class that suggest that we kind of intuit that people from a lower class context are more moral people. And so that was kind of our starting point from this research. We say that we think that they're more moral with our words. Would we follow through with our actions?
Yeah, I think a lot of us will, some pretend, some believe there's a certain righteousness in poverty. You know, you don't have all the negative effects of having too much money. But do people actually believe that, I think is where we start here.
Yeah, and from my point of view, there's kind of two reasons why we might have that belief or profess to have that belief. So one possibility is that it's just a little bit of lip service. We feel bad for people who grew up with nothing. And so we want to kind of give them a boost to make ourselves feel like it's not so bad. Like they're still good people. They're really good people. In fact, I think they're better people than most. And so if that were the case, we would have thought maybe, we're going to say that, but we're not going to follow through with our actions when there's something on the line. The other possibility is that there's one other possibility, maybe there's probably more that I haven't thought of, is that there's some kernel of truth to this, and that growing up with nothing in an environment where you kind of have to rely on other people, you have to cooperate in order to kind of survive and thrive, orients you towards a more interdependent way of seeing the world and a more kind of sense of like you're needing to rely on other people and other people needing to rely on you, and sort of like we're all in this together. We need to honor each other and not betray each other. And so those were kind of two, in my mind, kind of competing ideas about why we might have these stereotypes and that would have different consequences for how they would play out in behavior.
Does the reverse stereotype exist, that we view those that are very wealthy, grew up with extreme privilege, as somehow less moral, less ethical, or is that more a question for a different study?
Well, I think likely it does. So one thing that's sort of, you might say, a limitation about our research is that we didn't measure any kind of trust towards middle class folks. And so it's a little bit hard to tell from our findings, is it that we have a more trust for lower class folks or less trust for higher class folks? We did have one study where we included middle class targets, and it looked like it was primarily a boost for people in lower class contexts. But that, there's probably more research we could do about that.
Well, let's talk about the boosts that you found. Is it as simple as that? We do, in fact, tend to not just pay lip service to this trust, people who grew up with less than us. It's, in fact, true.
Well, we didn't. So what's kind of was interesting to us about this process was when we started, we weren't really thinking about the fact that there's the social class context you grew up in, and then there's the social class context you find yourself in now, and how those two things can be different. And so when we started the research, we actually were getting kind of mixed findings, and we realized it's because if I meet someone and I see that, they're not doing that well now, they're in a kind of a lower class context now, I'm going to make all kinds of assumptions about where they grew up. And so I'm kind of getting both pieces of information at once. Whereas when we started to separate those things out, what we found was that when people look at where you are now, that doesn't really matter. That doesn't really affect how much they are willing to behaviorally trust you. It's only the information about your past that really plays into how people treat you. And so to us, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this perception that if you're currently poor, it's somehow your fault, which is probably not even true. But if you grew up that way, it's kind of inherently not your fault. You're an innocent kid and you grew up with less privilege than me, therefore I trust you more. Is that kind of what you observed?
Yeah, David, the only caveat I would add to that is that when you find out about somebody's social class context in the present, you might not know about how they grew up, and you might make some kinds of assumptions, so that if somebody is not doing well now, they're in a lower social class now, you might kind of assume that they grew up poor, and that might kind of carry over into your judgments of them, even though where they are now isn't like the driving factor of what's making you trust them.
Is that why when I see some wealthy billionaire who owns a social networking website that rhymes with Schwitter, when I see them fail or their stock goes down, I kind of am like glad, you had all this money and now you don't. Whereas when I see someone who came from a less than privileged background fail, I feel bad for them. Could that be an explanation?
Well, the platform I think you're thinking of rhymes with Schwex now. So that's,
of course.
Let's be clear about that. But yeah, I think, there that gets into kind of more stuff beyond trust and just about kind of like Schadenfreude and like who we think deserves and success and things like that. The other thing that I'll just mention kind of in connection to some of this is that one thing that we noticed in our research is that when you act like you trust someone, so if I, let's say, let you borrow something of mine, or I ask you to do something for me that I can't do, but it really matters. Sometimes that's because I actually trust you and I think that you're, a trustworthy person. But what we found through our research is that sometimes it's because for a completely different reason. Sometimes it's just because I feel like I owe you something, or I just feel like you deserve my sympathy. I want to do something nice for you, or there might be some benefit to you, like I'm giving you an opportunity. And so we have to kind of be careful in our research anyways with what we interpret with, trust behavior. Sometimes they're driven by like actually feeling like you're a trustworthy person, and sometimes it's other stuff going on.
Yeah, I suppose it could be compassion or maybe even condescension. Like, I wouldn't normally trust you, but I feel bad, so I'll trust you.
Yeah, exactly.
So does these findings say something hopeful about us, that we really do trust the underdog more, or something kind of ugly about us, that we feel bad and that motivates us to be nicer?
Well, I wonder whether it's a little bit of both. So the main finding that we've been talking about was that people trust people who grew up in lower social class backgrounds. And that comes from a place it seems to come from a place of genuinely thinking that they're good people. But the reason I raised this other idea that sometimes we behave as if we trust people when we really don't necessarily is that we also find some kinds of trust behavior directed towards people who are in lower social class contexts now, but we never find that that's because we think that they're more trustworthy. We find that that's because we kind of feel more altruism towards them. We feel more like driven to be generous, and in situations where trusting you is like an act of kindness or gives you some kind of benefit, then we can find that same result. And so I don't know what to, whether that you want to interpret that as condescension, or whether you want to interpret that as like genuine sympathy and trying to kind of share with people who have less. I guess that's a matter of perspective.
It's in the eye of the beholder. Could an unethical person interpret your study, trying to get ahead in the workplace, who grew up, fancy, and lie and say they grew up impoverished to try to get people to treat them better?
Absolutely. And I think that that's something people sometimes, some people might have intuitions about. And we wonder, like, one place we'd like to take this research in some ways is looking at like the narratives that politicians construct about their histories and backgrounds. And like,
wait, politicians never lie. What are you talking about?
Well, again, matter of perspective, maybe. But yeah, like, what are you choosing to emphasize, and kind of what image are you trying to portray of your family and your background to sort of get people to like you and trust you, and maybe give you positions of power where you can, have a lot of control over.
Yeah, I mean, there are politicians, there's examples out there where they've lied about their backgrounds. They've been found out that they weren't as kind of earnest as they implied. And then there's always this backlash. I guess this makes us understand why. Anything next in your research? If you could have an unlimited budget to look into this further, what would you want to investigate?
Well, I don't know if this is going to require an unlimited budget, although if you give me a few minutes, I could probably come up with how to spend that.
And we would like you less, potentially.
Oh, yes, exactly. Well, but it wouldn't be my money. It would be money for my research. I would have to emphasize that. So I guess one thing that we're kind of interested now is thinking about morality and trust as less of a matter of degree and more of a matter of kind. And so the research so far, including our research, suggests that we think people from lower class contexts are more moral or more trustworthy. But we are wondering now if it's actually more interesting to look at it as we think that they're moral in certain ways, and that people in upper class backgrounds are maybe moral in other ways.
Kristin, thank you.
David, it's a pleasure.
Dr. Kristin Laurin is a psychology professor at the University of British Columbia. Up next, the moon. It's weird. There's one too many coincidences with lunar history, like the landing. The moon. Up next. This is The Last Show. I'm David Cooper.
The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Questions questioned, answers answered. We are here with Noah cap. You can swear on the radio, right?
We're about to find out.
We're about to find out. Let's hope our censors bleep that. I hope you caught that there in the control room. Noah Cappe is a TV host. He has a curiosity about the unknown, and he joins us to discuss the moon. Made of cheese, that we'll find out. Noah, welcome.
My goodness. Always a pleasure. Good to be back. I don't want to say I missed you, but maybe.
I mean, I like having you here.
Yeah.
That makes one of us at least.
We're slowly checking off the big ticket items as we chip away through these episodes. And this was only a matter of time. The moon is one of those that's riddled with so many weird questions and so many wacky theories. We had to talk about it.
I think a lot of the things that you want to talk about, astronomers don't think are the coincidences you think they are.
Well, listen, we're gonna talk about, and I'm not just talking about moon landing. We don't even have to touch the moon landing if you don't want to. But can I say one thing about the moon landing that I learned recently? And it actually ties into Noah versus the unknown on a bigger scale. And that is, do you know that the farthest a human has ever traveled in space is Apollo 10, I think, to the moon? It's like 408,000 kilometers, or whatever, 300,000 something miles. The second farthest that a human has ever traveled in space was Apollo 13, when they did a thing around the moon, whatever it was. Other than that, the farthest anybody's ever been, a human, is low orbit. Like the exterior of Earth, where Earth turns into space.
There's still a little bit of our atmosphere up there, like a tiny fraction, yeah.
That's the second farthest a human has ever been in space. So we are supposed to believe that in 1969, for the first time ever, after 2 years of trying to tackle this thing of JFK going, we're going to the moon and we've got this timeline to do it, that they then send a group of people not only 408,000 kilometers into space, but successfully land them on the moon, drive around on rovers, get back up to a spaceship, and come back home on their first attempt ever. And since then, we've never left outer orbit. It's a weird one to me.
Okay, you did not just make an argument. The basic premise of your argument there is we're supposed to believe. That was the best evidence you put forth. Just letting you know that.
that one blew, and I was like, I've heard this wacky moon landing theory forever. How am I hearing this for the first time? So I start to try to do a deep dive, because I'm like, I know the world we live in. This could be a headline. This could just... But it's real.
You have to put it in the context of the arms race of the Cold War. It was a fight between the U.S. and the USSR, the Soviet Union, to try to prove that they had the rocket power and the technology to do bigger and more amazing things. And for whatever reason, in that blip of time, it wasn't displaying nuclear explosions. It was competing on space travel. And that's why they put in the resources to do it at that time. And that's why it was such an incremental step above what we had seen in terms of distance from the Earth. Also, if we're doing crackpot evidence, I'm supposed to believe being your best argument. I know you have a better one, but whatever.
Yeah.
Explain to me why Buzz Aldrin, one of the guys who went to the moon, punched a conspiracy theorist in the face when they confronted him about the moon landing being fake. Why would he do that? Why would he risk it all, going to jail, punching a guy in the face if the thing was fake? That's my best argument.
Well, listen, that clip, if you watch the whole clip, the guy saying, put your hand on the Bible and say that you landed on the moon, and he won't do it. Or there's two different clips.
Yeah, if some wackadoodle came up to you with a Bible and said blah, 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 blah.
Well, now see, hold on. And this is why I love our conversations, because what you don't know is that wackadoodle just finished a 1 hour sit down interview. He is a legitimate media figure. He's finishing up a 1 hour interview. They've got television monitors, and now he blindsides him. He puts a clip up on the screen and shows him this thing and says, "This is not possible. Explain this." And he's like, "This isn't what I signed up for. That's not what we're here to talk about." And then he goes, just say you landed on the moon. Put your hand on the Bible and say it. And he won't do it. So then he's like, I'll give $5,000 to charity. Just put your hand on the Bible and say you landed on the moon. And he won't do it. It's those clips and those moments where you're like, this is all so weird. Like, just say you did it. End the argument.
This guy who you were saying is a credible journalist, Bart Sibrel or whatever, I'm looking him up. From what I'm reading here, credible is a strong word.
Well, credible in the sense of he organizes and gets a sit-down interview with a astronaut. He's not a guy who runs up on the street with a Bible.
My counter argument is people sit down with me, you know. People are willing to sit down with anyone is what I'm saying.
I just find it wild that they not listen, saying, okay, it's 1969, there's an arms race, we flew to the moon, we got there first is one thing, but we left the ship, we descended down to another, to a moon. We got off that ship. We walked around. We drove a car. Like, we've never done any of this. We've never been to space.
There's always a first, Noah. Like,
Right.
there was the first craft to get to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, you know, the deepest point of the Pacific Ocean.
100%. But that craft didn't travel at light speed and have a cafeteria and have families like sightseeing. You're going from 0 to 1,000,000. Like, there was no middle ground. No spaceships blew up.
Once you've exited Earth's gravitational pull, you just float. Like, it's not, you know what? The moon.
I said I didn't want to bring it up because the moon landing is obviously on its own, you know, one of the biggest, craziest conspiracy theories.
I think they would have faked it. They approached Kubrick, that's well known. They approached the filmmaker who made 2001: A Space Odyssey to fake the landing if they needed to prove to the Russians that they were ahead. But I think the mission succeeded, and they never went through with that plan. I can see why people have conspiratorial thinking around it. But the evidence at this point, for me, is overwhelming. Regardless, I know it's not for you. You can have the last word.
No.
Have it.
I'm just saying the evidence for you is footage that looks like it was filmed through a Vaseline smeared, like, or whatever. Well, it was 1969. We're talking about, we just sent a group of humans 400,000 kilometers into deep space and they're driving around the moon. But the camera can't get footage that doesn't look like extremely weird and shady. What evidence do we actually have? People who won't tell us whatever. Buzz Aldrin, holy moly, that guy couldn't be weirder about that moon experience. He never actually says anything normal about them landing there or it being whatever. Half the time he's talking about megaliths on Mars and, he saw something. I don't doubt that he's been up there in some kind of orbit or whatever. But
you're saying whether he is literally or metaphorically, he's out there. He's up there.
He is out there. He's out there. I'm so curious to hear what your listeners think. And it's like one of those things where it's just like, you think, oh, it's 100% conspiracy theory, but then you start looking into it. It's like, I don't know.
I kind of I defer to the mainstream narratives because if I start believing any old thing, it's going to drive me wild.
Right.
I think enough documents have been declassified from that era that we kind of know about all the shady stuff the government was doing back then.
Yeah.
By now it would have been declassified. You have the whole scientific apparatus at NASA that delivered and worked on that spacecraft. You know, it didn't happen in a vacuum.
I mean, it would be the biggest embarrassment in the history of the country. It would be.
I mean, at this point, it would just be a drop in a bucket.
Well, listen, the moon obviously is full of these types of things, and this is what we're talking about.
That is true. We have just bantered about whether the moon landing is real, and I wouldn't have done it with anyone else. I'm here with Noah Cappe. When we come back, we'll talk about some odd coincidences that have to do with the moon, and I promise none of them will be the landing. The one I want to bring up, which I think is a non-coincidence, is it being tidally locked. The moon's rotation about itself is a little odd at first glance. We're here with Noah Cappe. We'll be back.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Oh, it's such a clutch pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom, too. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
The GOAT!
Save up to 50% with minimum purchase at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Keep listening to The Last Show with David Cooper, because the alien invasion can wait. The Last Show with David Cooper.
It's Noah versus the unknown. Noah Cappe is an expert in all things strange, weird, and bizarre. Questions questioned, answers answered. We are discussing La Lune. Noah, welcome back.
Oh, this is exciting. We're going to get into some weird stuff.
The moon is said to be tidally locked, which in lay terms, me not sounding like such a nerd, there is a quote-unquote dark side, which is actually not a dark side. The sun does shine on it, but it's a side we never see. The Earth is always kind of rotating in such a way that we only ever see one face of it.
Yeah.
As it orbits the Earth, it rotates the exact correct amount so that we only see one side.
Yeah.
Strange, Noah.
Strange. And that, for me, ties into like 2 or 3 things that you can say, look, you can find this in other parts of the universe. But for all of these things to line up on this one moon, on this one example, is odd. For example, tied in with this unbelievable like tidal lock and the fact that if you are a theorist or you have some belief that the other side of the moon is harboring some hidden base or alien whatever, something is back there that we don't see and that it's purposely facing us only in one direction, it gets into a bunch of weird stuff. And one of the things that caught my eye early was the fact that the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon. And the moon is 400 times closer than the sun. That makes 2 things happen. One, on Earth, the moon and the sun look exactly the same in our sky. So you've got this like unbelievably, again, like this is a simulation, if it's constructed, whatever your theories are, this unbelievable statistical anomaly that not only creates a perfect eclipse, that eclipse happens. That's not happening everywhere around the universe. It is because you have got a circle that is the exact distance away from the larger circle that it creates this like mask. It's wild.
It is, but we're at a point in time where that's possible. There will be a last eclipse on the Earth as the sun expands, because it's the type of star it is. It'll kind of expand before it dies out, and we get tugged in a little bit closer. There will be a final eclipse where the moon no longer completely covers the sun. It's just kind of where we're at.
Well, there will be a final eclipse if you believe that the moon has always been there, which ties into going back to the earliest we can find about the moon. If you can go back to the earliest documentation, the ancient cultures.
Are you talking about like, okay, you're not talking about like 4 billion years ago, young Earth, when an asteroid probably impacted the Earth and the moon is a remnant of that? You're not talking about that.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Greek writings, okay. Zulu tribes, ancient folklore.
You're out there.
That talks about a time where the moon wasn't here.
Oh, you're out there, man. I like it.
A time where the moon didn't exist, where people write about at night that...
You're willing to believe that, but not the accounts from NASA that the moon landing was...
I'm telling you, I'm saying I don't think the moon landing was real. I think it was there.
But you're saying ancient accounts that you're cherry picking from is evidence that the moon wasn't always there?
I'm saying that there is writing, there is stories, there is folklore, there is history, which is passed through cultures, which has to be taken seriously to a certain degree. You have to acknowledge that that is an unbelievable form of how we've learned or whatever.
You can take culture's historical, religious records seriously and not necessarily believe supernatural claims are true. You can believe that the people of the day believed it and respect those beliefs, but I'm not going to believe a culture that says the moon was never there.
And that's your choice. But there's a lot of people who think that there's a lot of writings and a lot of people who talk about a time where it wasn't here.
All right.
And that they talk about the ocean dancing, that when the moon was brought here, when it was, I don't know what that means, brought here, that the oceans dance, that the things, whatever. It's like, okay, you're talking about a time where how could they understand the tidal connection of our oceans to the moon? These interesting things at a time where you're just like, wow, that's wild. So will we see a last eclipse? I don't know. Maybe they're going to throw that thing in reverse and back it out again.
Who's they? Whatever.
The Anunnaki, David.
As the moon pulls on the Earth, it causes bulging and our oceans to kind of stick out towards it. That's what creates the tides.
That's right.
And as the Earth pulls on the moon, it creates equatorial, or the equator of the moon, bulging. That bulging effect has a like a reverse force. It has like a twisting force that gets applied to the moon from it, and that causes an orbit gradually to become tidally locked. That's why we observe tidally locked orbits in our own solar system. You know, it's not an uncommon thing to happen when two bodies have been orbiting each other of the size of the Earth and the moon. That's the explanation.
100%. No question. But as always, you can take one thing and say, look, we find this in other places, but there's also an unusual tilt. Like the axial tilt of our planet is affected by the moon, and it is almost kept in check by the moon. So it's like, this is an uncommon relationship due to its weight, its size. The measurements don't add up, but it does. The tidal lock, it happens, but again, it's pretty flawless and pretty locked in. The size and dimension and spacing with the sun from the planet that creates these eclipses, it's just like all of the boxes of these it happens get checked. When 5 it happens out there get checked on one thing, you go, well, this is a peculiar.
We got into this the last time you're here. And what I say to you is the sum of a bunch of bad evidence, you don't get to sum them together to say it's good evidence. You get to say your best piece that you got is all you get.
But don't you think at some point you can't sit here and go, look, we're the planet that like a bunch of like things floated around in hot boiling water and slowly merged in and became a little cellular thing, and that turned into a fish. And it's like, it just statistically happened here because it could, whatever. And the moon just statistically happened here. And our proximity from the sun in the Goldilocks zone just statistically happened here. It's like, well, 800 of the most unbelievable boxes in the universe got checked to make us here. Maybe that's why we're the only ones. Maybe that's why people feel like we are floating around out here, because we are the most unlikely thing to ever happen.
I am in agreement with you that there are some unbelievable things that have happened in our history that caused us to be here and caused us to not necessarily observe life out there in the cosmos. Fine, I concede to that. But I'm happy throwing up my arms and saying, I don't know, let's investigate it scientifically. I'm not going to believe in some supernatural stuff. This is where you and I kind of differ.
Well, then let's just get into hard evidence. Let's get into photos. Let's get into video. Let's get into bases, towers, antenna. Let's get into structures on the moon. Let's get into NASA employees, leaked evidence, photos, people with databases full of images that seem to show shaped structures on the planet. I mean, look, the ringing like a bell. One of the biggest arguments that the moon is some kind of structure or is not what it seems to be, which is the hollow moon theory. And that is when Apollo left and they launched the I don't know all the terms, but they release a part of the ship that basically crashes back down on the moon. It hit the moon and the moon rang like a bell for about an hour. So they say, okay, well, that's because the density on the outside is different from the thing, whatever. Okay, so again, this is like, what are these statistical anomalies that just keep lining up that this thing is like ringing like a bell, this hollow kind of like a potential inside? It just reeks of conspiracy theory goodness.
You know, you and I are kind of at the opposite ends of the willing to believe and imagine about strange, unknown, alternate possibilities. I think that we get along so well, and yet I can't stand half of what you say, and you probably can't stand half of what I say.
I was gonna say the same thing.
I wish more people were like us. I really do. Noah Cappe is here. I can't stand him, but I love him to death, and I'm so glad he came on the show. I guess people can make their own decisions about the moon.
Yeah, listen, buy a telescope and spend a couple of weeks looking at it. You'll probably see some kind of flashing light or some type of craft lever arrive, and then you can make a decision on your own.
Jokes aside, here's something sincere. I really appreciate you being on the show. Noah Cappe's a TV host. Check him out. Look up Noah versus the Unknown. Noah, thanks again. You can say thank you back if you want.
No, I'm good.
We'll be back tomorrow. This was The Last Show. I'm David Cooper.